thank you for tuning in to Pittsburgh, our city. I'm Melanie Boyer, the director of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce here in Pittsburgh, and today we're here with Ron Alvarado and Rosanna Guernica. And I don't know if you know, but after Hurricane Maria, Pittsburgh was one of the principal cities to give aid and support to Puerto Rico in their time of need. And today we're here with two of the people who really were instrumental in this effort, Ron Alvarado and Rosanna Guernica. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for having us.
So I know that Hurricane Maria changed everything. So first I want to talk about who you were and what you were doing before the hurricane. Rosanna?
I had just started up again full-time at Carnegie Mellon. I had been working at a jewelry store prior to that in sales, and now started a full-time job, or a part-time job in marketing as a special project management. I was studying for an exam, and we just stopped hearing anything from back home. There was no updates. We didn't hear from our friends. It was just total silence for a while. And then a couple days later, I was able to get in touch with my father.
Okay, I want to hear all about the first time that you heard from them. But first, Ron, do you want to tell us what you were doing before the...
Well, obviously, running my business, NOVUS Group.
And what does your business do?
So we're a staffing company here in Pittsburgh. And my mother was living in Puerto Rico at the time. And she was ill. She had stage 4 metastasized breast cancer. So she was there with my uncle and my aunt are their neighbors, and they showed up to Puerto Rico. So there was we felt good that she was not alone. But they're all in their 70s and 80s, and so. It was a challenging time. The hurricane hit. So we had Irma first, and Irma, we lost contact for a couple of days. And then Maria was total silence. We didn't know what was going on the island.
So before you guys heard about Maria, you had already heard back from your families after Irma had hit?
I had, yes. My father was in the capital, which wasn't as affected.
So what was the state of Puerto Rico at that time, Ron, after?
One of the concerns that I had was about the delicate infrastructure. I knew regardless of what happened with the storm, with the hurricane, it would be the aftermath because of the frail electrical grid. And so after Irma, I remember seeing, I don't remember if it was Irma or Maria, that the headlines coming out of some of the periodicals, I think with the Miami Herald talked about, that there will be no power on the island for 3 months. So that's one of the challenges. But after Irma, the power went back on a couple of days. But then we saw this monster hurricane aiming for the island, and we knew that was going to be a challenge. The eye of the Hurricane Maria was wider than the entire island.
So, Rosanna, Ron talked about his mother and family being there. What is your connection to the island?
So I was born and raised there. I left at the age of 18 to study at Carnegie Mellon. My father lives on the island, as well as my grandparents on both sides of the family. My grandmother on my father's side had passed away a few months before, and after everything that happened, we said, it's a blessing that she passed away calmly when she did, because she wouldn't have survived the aftermath. And then my grandparents on my mother's side thankfully had medical appointments in Texas, and the return flight was canceled by Maria, which they were, very upset by, didn't understand, because in Puerto Rico, we're accustomed to having hurricanes all the time. And okay, we'll lose power for a couple days, but we'll be fine and it'll get back on. And the canceling of the return flight ended up being an even larger blessing.
That's great. So Ron, what about you? Where were you when you first heard that Maria had made it to the island?
So it was actually my daughter's birthday, so her birthday is September 20th. I had been communicating with Luis Clemente particularly after Irma, in terms of how do we galvanize efforts in Pittsburgh to help the hurricane victims of Irma. So I was already in touch and trying to figure out how we could help the island. But Maria was devastating. It was really a challenge. I remember, I don't think I slept that night. And then very, very concerned the next day. My mother obviously ill. We don't know whether she has oxygen, electricity, food. It was just a really concerning time. And it was that state of not knowing anything for weeks. I didn't talk to my mother from the 20th of September through, I think, the 2nd of October. We didn't know where they were. We thought they were evacuated. They meaning my mother, my aunt, my uncle, and their cousin, and then my mother's husband. So we didn't know where they were. We thought they had been evacuated. And finally we got word that they were okay. But that was almost 2 weeks after.
How did that feel when you first heard from them? What were their spirits like?
It was a challenge. I mean, it was great to hear that they were safe and that they never left the house. In fact, I tried to get out to Puerto Rico. So I had 2 flights canceled. I was flying out of, I went from here to Fort Lauderdale, and I figured I can get from Florida to Puerto Rico easier because I could go out of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, or Tampa, and they canceled 2 of my flights. So I came back. I was pretty devastated because I just didn't know. I just didn't know. But it was great to hear from her. And then it was a challenging environment. So they're still in their house. It's hot. There's no electricity. So I had questions I would ask: do you have water? Do you have food? How's your medicine, and how much oxygen? And I made sure every time I talked to them, I had those 4 questions. And so towards the latter part, it was just, thank God for this angel. But towards the latter part, it was like they're running out of food. The food, the water, the smell, the rats. I mean, think about it. There's no sanitation, so I could just imagine that heat, the smell. They couldn't cook. My mother's sick. They're going to the fast food place to get food and nourishment. It's bad. Yeah, my mother was, she was in a tough situation.
Wow, I can't even imagine, especially being there, in a medical state, or, people who had kids and things like that. I mean, it's just amazing what people can go through and come out of. So to talk about the turning point for that, at this point, everything is devastated. We're hearing all these negative things on the news, how aid isn't making it. What were you feeling at that time, Rosanna, that was the turning point for you between seeing the news and being sad and let's take action?
To be honest, as soon as I was able to get in contact with my friends who lived in San Juan and family, and they were saying, we're okay, but the situation's really bad, and they were telling me what was going on, it was an immediate take action. There was no, oh, this is terrible, and just a mourning. No, we immediately went into problem solving mode. And that's why it was so frustrating, like Ron said, because there was nothing we could do. And we don't realize how many things we take for granted until we don't have them anymore. I found one way to get things there. My uncle works for American Airlines in their finance department. And they were allowing their employees to send 1 box up to 150 pounds and 1 generator a day for free on their cargo planes. And that was the only way we had found a way to get anything to the island 4 days after the storm. And we didn't know when it was going to get there, but at least it was going to get there. So I would get in touch with people, with family, with friends, find out what they needed. And then their family members in the States would buy them. If they couldn't afford it, I would buy them. And then my aunt in Dallas would pick it up at Target, Home Depot, pack it in these boxes per family with a list of what was per family, and send the box. And so that's how I became really aware of what the specific needs were, and then of the specific challenges. So I came across a friend of mine who needed insulin for his aunt, but there was no way we could send insulin because it needs to be kept refrigerated. And even if we could keep it cold for 24, 48 hours, that probably wouldn't be sufficient. And then the most striking moment was when I got in touch with my high school teacher, my freshman English teacher, and asked her, like, what do you need? What do you need? And she goes, we need the military down here. And so to have a woman who is my mentor and was so strong, like she's a strong, independent woman and taught me so much. And to have her on Facebook Messenger saying, we need the military, write to your representative, whoever, was horrifying. And I'll never forget that. And so that's when I think we went from the FedEx boxes to going to extreme as thinking about hiring a private plane. I truly thought I was insane for having that idea. And so did my friends and family in the States, but it was an insane situation and it warranted an insane response.
Well, and it takes one person usually, everybody knew the need, maybe not to the extent that you knew the need, but we were all hearing on the news, nothing is making it, and millions of people, billions of people sat by and said, oh, nothing's making it. And it takes a person like you to block that off and say, I'm going to do something about it. I don't care if nothing's making it, there has to be a way. And I'm sure that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who would thank you for that. So I want to commend you on that for sure.
Well, it's not just me, because it doesn't matter if I have the idea if no one's there to support it. And I can't do it on my own. But the students at Carnegie Mellon who formed our team, the people who gave a 22-year-old thousands of dollars to rent this plane, people like Ron, who pulled all his contacts to get us on the media and fundraise and push and push and push. I don't know if it could have happened in many other cities other than Pittsburgh.
Yes, and that is one of the amazing things and a huge reason why we wanted to feature it on our show, because a lot of people don't know Pittsburgh became known as the city that gave back the most to Puerto Rico, and it was largely because of you two. So you said you connected with Ron. Ron, tell me a little bit about the first time that you talked to Rosanna, because you guys didn't know each other before.
No. So I think what happened was there was a lot of moving parts. So Fred Ramos, one of my compadre, in fact, Fred, myself, and Luis Clemente were at the baseball stadium when Irma hit. Okay. And so Fred he founded, or he organized what we called what he termed the Coalition of the Willing. And we had conference calls every Monday. So Fred's the Senior Vice President of Corporate Communications at Highmark. The Blue Cross Blue Shield affiliate in Puerto Rico was AAA Salud, one of the top three, I think the second or third largest employer in Puerto Rico. So we have that organization, and it's a medical organization. We have Carmen Yulin's team, the mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico. We have the Clemente family there. Then we met a great man by the name of Raul Rodriguez, and his companies, Drogueria Betances and LGI Luis Garaton Inc., which are two large, very large companies on the island, and they're logistics companies. So one is a pharmaceutical company, so they're tied into the medical infrastructure. They have trucks and warehouse space. And then we have Luis Garaton Inc., which is a logistics company, which is all about moving stuff around the island. So we were just blessed. So Fred knew that I tried to get down to Puerto Rico. I needed to get to my mother, and he knew the grave circumstances, and so he connected me with Rosanna. That was somewhere around, I had just talked to my mom, and then it was about Rosanna was getting ready for her second plane out, and that was on October 14th. We were able to save my mother's life.
So tell me about those planes. You said it was your second plane. When did you get the first plane to go down?
To be honest, it's been so long now that the dates, I used to have the dates completely memorized, but I believe October 2nd. No, that's not right. It was a week after It was a week after Hurricane Maria hit.
So when was that first plane that you took to Puerto Rico?
It was October 4th, only a week and a half or so after the storm.
A week, that's like no time at all. That's pretty amazing. What did that entail?
So I first came up with the idea, I want to say Wednesday evening, and I launched the crowdfunding campaign early Thursday. And I just reached out to a lot of different friends who were studying in the States, who were from back home, and they helped me like write all the marketing for it, I guess, and what kind of emails we would send out and try to do, you know, very ad hoc strategy. And I want to say in about 24 hours, I think there was about $12,000 raised. And meanwhile, I'm writing emails to absolutely everyone. Everyone at Carnegie Mellon. I'm saying in the administration, I'm saying your alumna is on TV screaming that they are dying from dehydration and starvation. Like, what are you guys doing about it? Just to anyone who would listen, I was meeting with. And so I met with Ann English. She's she works for the Heinz College Administration. And we had brunch one morning. And at this point, I'm really fed up with meetings because everyone wants to have meetings, and we're not in a situation where we can just be sitting around and talking because people are dying by the day. And we met, and I don't know if it's that she wasn't aware enough beforehand or what clicked, but during that meeting, she was all in, and she was like, we have to do something. And so without asking permission from anyone, she sent my crowdfunding campaign through the Heinz alumni base, email database. And so that was a Monday morning. Mm-hmm. And so that Monday afternoon raised the $8,000 missing dollars or so that we can book this flight and leave Thursday morning. So meanwhile, while all the financial part's going on one side, it's the other side, which talking to doctors back home. And I started that by reaching out to my friends from high school whose parents I knew were doctors. Mm-hmm. And if I couldn't get in touch with them, if they knew anyone else. And I asked them, like, do you need medicine? Do you have patients who need to leave? And if not, can you connect me to someone else who might? Because I might be in a position to help. And that's how I came across cases of patients that needed to leave immediately and that were going to die otherwise. And there was one family in particular, Caraballo Flores. Their two sons were in the States, and they had a third son on the island with them, elderly woman and man, and she had cancer, breast cancer, and it was pretty aggressive. And she really needed to get out. And they were so desperate to get her out of there that they were calling everyone they knew to raise the missing $5,000 so that we could book this charter and go. And I'll never forget when I called him, the son, to tell him that we got the money and that we have the flight. Like, that was just absolutely fantastic. Because here they were ready to, like, just like take out a loan or whatever they needed to get that $5,000. And like, I was able to say, like, that's not even necessary. Like, we're good to go. That was amazing.
So one of the people that you helped is Ron's mom, right? Tell us what that feeling was like when you realized your mom was going to be able to get out of there.
Well, so I was on the plane, and so I've had some, survivor guilt syndrome and certainly post-traumatic stress, but because I took a seat, I should have not been on that plane, but I was on the plane, amazing. These young people. So in fact, I was asked to speak at the Democratic, some fundraiser for the Democratic Party.
I still have the flyer from that night.
We were going to get some press. I said, well, let me invite Rosanna. We want to talk about what we're doing. And so we got some media coverage. That was on a Thursday. These guys were driving. In fact, she came to that event on the south side in a pickup truck with Ann English, right? They were driving. This was Thursday. They were going to drive down there. I was flying the next day. I said, and then there were some other students that were going to fly down. So I got there early, and I had some satellite phones from Highmark that I was delivering to, one for Luis Clemente, one for Carmen Ling. And then I was waiting for everybody to get down there, but they didn't get there until early in the morning, meaning 4 a.m. And then we had to be up at 8 and then at the airport for the charter. And I remember, we loaded the plane. They were all sleeping. I got some photos. It was me and Dr. Yazdet Maldonado from AGH, who's from Puerto Rico, director of anesthesiology. She was there with us. And it was just quiet. Then we had loaded the plane. There was water on the plane. I remember the little plush dolls from CMU.
I love that picture.
But I tell you, what the striking thing is, landing in Puerto Rico, that was devastating. This is a tropical island, meaning green, vibrant greens when you land. And we got there and it was scorched. It was burnt. The best way to describe it is burnt. Orange and brown. It was just a scorched island. So we touched down. There was a lot of chaos, a lot of moving parts because we had a short window, and then I've got to get my parents, and then we're helping with offloading the plane. Just a lot of moving parts. They couldn't find us. Rosanna's running around. I was able to meet your grandparents, and then we loaded up, and then we were back. So I saw my mom too. My mom didn't want to travel without her dog. So we, it was something. And I still have the pictures. In fact, when we landed, I drove, I forget where I drove to, but we were going to drive to one spot and we decided to stay in another spot. We were going to Jacksonville with my mom, and I couldn't sleep. I stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning. I just started putting these pictures together, and I put music to it. I just needed, I needed to really digest this, and I couldn't sleep, and I needed to get these images on, so I was able to put that together, and so I realized, after, that was on the second trip, it was, I think, 32 passengers, and my mom was one of those passengers that would not have made it. This is real life or death. This is not, my mother would not have made it another week, I don't think. So, and then a lot of those other passengers, I saw them, I helped them on the plane, so it was something. And then, for me, and then I was really shocked by it emotionally. So to know that Rosanna did how many of these trips?
5 evacuations and 1 return.
Yeah, so that's 6, and I'm like, wow. 1 for me was really devastating emotionally. So, so that was on October 14th. And that was on the second plane, and I know Rosanna just kept going. So one of the things that, fortunately, we galvanized, and then we got involved with, there's a lot of players here, brother's brother.
Yeah.
So between Fred and Highmark and then brother's brother, and I said, you know what, we're gonna be there for Rosanna. Whatever we can do to support Rosanna, meaning, I don't want this young lady getting stuck with the financial burden of chartering these planes on her own. And and so thank goodness brother's brother agreed, and it's basically, okay, we're going to help.
Yeah, so you were talking about earlier how you had, when people didn't have what they needed, you just paid for it. So you were a full-time student at the time, right? Were you working?
Yeah, so I was working about 10 to 20 hours a week for an old professor of mine who has her own marketing firm, and I was able to work from home. It was great. I fell behind on a lot of, she was totally understanding, but I wasn't getting paid. I remember at some point in November, I was so late with rent that I just emailed my landlord, and I was like, I know I'm late, but this is going on, and it's why I haven't been working, and so I'm a little tied up right now. And I even sent them a link to the Post-Gazette article. I'm like, see, this is what I'm doing. Please, this is for a really good reason. Just give me some time.
And what was their response to that?
They were like, yeah, it's okay. We'll waive your late fee.
Oh, I'm surprised they were like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's really amazing. How many people, you said there were 6 trips?
Yeah.
How many people did you end up getting out?
296.
I hope everyone watching is clapping because that's just an amazing number. And I know you always talk about the team, but I think you are really a catalyst in this. It's just so amazing, and the fact that you didn't skip a beat, that you didn't have that downtime, and you just said, "What are we going to do?" It's really
Here are interesting stories. So I was, and I hadn't connected. She was running, I was doing my stuff, and I tried to get a hold of Rosanna. We just didn't connect. And then I was at I'll never forget this. I was downtown with some folks from PNC Bank, and we were going to Rebel and Roost. No, we went to Pirata. So, and I was walking in, and I was talking about the fundraiser that she was going to do at Rebel and Roost that Sunday. And as I was talking, she turns around and she's at Pirata asking for a donation so man, I tell you about Jack of all, wearing all the hats.
Well, you're really a connector in this. So Ron, I don't know if anybody watching will know all the different roles that you play, but tell us a little bit about your involvement, with the Chamber of Commerce and all the different groups that you brought together.
Yeah, so I was at the time I was the chairman of the Hispanic Chamber. And so I had ties, and working with Luis. So when Luis got back to Puerto Rico, Luis Clemente, he was working with the governor's wife, the First Lady of Puerto Rico, on this campaign to bring aid after Irma. And I was waiting for a translated press release in English so that I can then send that with my email to people that I was going to connect with here, companies, medical companies, medical equipment companies, those companies that I knew would be able to provide support. When Maria came, that whole effort left my mind. I was thinking I'm not going to do that, but because now we have forget about Irma, now we have this huge hurricane, and then by chance, on the 21st, so the day after Hurricane Maria, I called brother's brother because I knew that this was much bigger than anything I could do. I don't have the resources, the time, or the capabilities to do what needed to get done. I had contacts. And so when I expected to get the runaround, but I called and I got right through to Luke Hinkson. At the time he was the president CEO. He got his team, and by 3:30 that afternoon of the 21st of September, we had a press conference. And by the next day, we'd raised $20,000. So that effort just kept snowballing. The Pirates were critical. Joey Cora. Joey Cora goes to Frank Coonley. Joey Cora was the Puerto Rican third base coach, was instrumental in getting the Pirates involved. And the Pirates have done more. I mean, they were basically the catalyst for all efforts, ensuing efforts in Puerto Rico, because through Joey Cora, he puts us in touch with Raul Rodriguez, who's the owner of the Criollos de Caguas, which is the professional baseball team in Puerto Rico, but also the owner of these two companies, Drogueria Betances and LGI. And so the challenge in Puerto Rico at the time was, you get it there, then what happens? We heard all the stories. You had gridlock at the airport. So not here. So the Pirates went in, and Frank Cooley tells this story wonderfully. They do an ask. So the Pirates determined the players were focused on not just sending money, but taking aid to Puerto Rico. Cervelli, so it was Joey Cora, Francisco Cervelli, Mike Gonzalez, who's one of their staff, one of the management members, and Sean Rodriguez, and other players. They said, we're going to Puerto Rico. So they went out to the community and said, we're going to do a collection at the stadium. Bring supplies, bring donations to the stadium. And that was on a Monday morning. So that was 4th, was Thursday, 3rd was I guess it was the 1st of October. And Frank Cooley says, so Frank Cooley reaches out to FedEx, their partner, and Pitt Ohio Express. So FedEx has a plane that they said, we're going to give you a plane, a jumbo cargo plane, that holds 125,000 pounds of cargo. And so Frank tells the story that he gets to the stadium at 5:30 in the morning thinking, okay, how much, now we got to fill this one plane up with 125,000 pounds. And he says that there was a trickle of people coming in early, and he got his media people to get with the local stations and get the word out. And then he says as the day went on, it was unbelievable. The lines of cars and cars and cars bringing supplies in.
And what was the outcome of that?
So again, one plane holds 125,000 pounds. They collected 450,000 pounds.
Amazing.
So they take the plane in, 1 or 2 planes in. They take the plane in. The first plane goes in the same day that you got there. I didn't realize that you got there that day. But on the Thursday, the 4th, the plane gets there. The plane hits the tarmac, and they had, the governor of Puerto Rico was there, some other dignitaries, but Raul Rodriguez was there, and they had, I forget how many, a tarmac of 18-wheelers. Unloaded the planes, put it on the trucks. The trucks go to Bayamón, to the LGI warehouse in Bayamón. They started a sorting campaign. And so here's where it starts getting real interesting. So you have this ready, established network, logistics operation, big warehouse. Fortunately, he had space in the warehouse to take cargo. His employees were there. They worked from the time the trucks got there till 4 o'clock in the morning. This is Thursday. We have Triple S Salud staff, which is the medical insurance company, and doctors and nurses sorting medical supplies. So that's turnover. So by 4 a.m., 5 a.m., those trucks now were on the ground, and people were receiving aid by 8 o'clock in the morning. And so that's continued. In fact, I just got an email today, this is March 11th, 2019. How many months afterwards? I got an email today from the folks at Betances. Those are our partners. So Sammy Sierra, Orlando Pinheiro, and Raul Rodriguez. So we're working with schools now. We have a budget back. We're going to put 5 air conditioners in the school in Gurabo. They need a playground. We're helping a school in Monadillas. We've helped a school in Caguas. We helped a school in Bayamón. We've helped 30 hospitals all over the island today in real time. So that effort, and the beauty of it is there's no time wasted. There's no bureaucracy. Like you said, there's no meeting. I met with a politician over there recently when I was there on my last trip, and I said, no, listen, this is how we work. I need a response from you by Saturday. Today's Wednesday, by Saturday. And if I don't get a response from you by Saturday, it's not happening. I'm going to another place, because this is not about meetings where we're delivering. There's no bureaucracy. So the wonderful thing about Brothers is that, first of all, 100% of what's coming in is going back out, and we're getting it to the people, and it's basically what they need. The hospitals. I mean, we've outfitted hospitals and schools, and so the Pirates started that effort. Big kudos to Frank Cooley and Bob Nutting and Joey Cora, the players, but ultimately it's about the people of Pittsburgh. I mean, like Rosanna said, where else? I mean, Pittsburgh is
400,000 pounds of aid from Pittsburgh.
This is one weekend.
Amazing.
And then, so we've delivered so far 1.2 million pounds.
That's amazing. Well, so it's still going on. I want to talk about that a little bit. So after all that initial, getting things there, figuring things out, when was the last time you were in Puerto Rico, Rosanna?
A few months ago, after New Year's.
And so what are the state of things now?
A lot of Puerto Rico's problems are not going to be solved for a very, very long time, like a decade. So even in the capital, which is probably the most well-off area, you have areas where you don't have streetlights, and you'll take a turn and suddenly it's really, really dark. So my grandmother told me that she leaves work every day around 3 to 4 because she just does not want to risk having to drive at night because it's really scary without any street lights, sometimes without any traffic lights. And that's just in the capital. We see pictures all the time of people, university students, in lecture halls with water coming down the ceiling, being collected. So although that's not doing well, and it's going to take a long time just because how vast the destruction was, when it comes to people and processes, they're doing really, really well. I mean, you were talking about the vegetation earlier and how when we flew over it was brown and it was so heartbreaking. But by December, it was coming back. And it was amazing to see how quickly an entire island that was entirely brown is starting to flourish again. And so, honestly, people back home, they're just focused on being better prepared for next time, and making themselves more independent, I believe. So they're focused on making more products in Puerto Rico, encouraging the agriculture industry, encouraging musicians and businesses that are from there, because Maria showed them a very scary period where no one else but themselves were there. So, you know, as tough as it can be with employment and infrastructure, the Puerto Rican spirit is doing I think even better than before.
That's amazing. Ron, what do you think? How did Hurricane Maria change you and your outlook?
Well, I think I'm going to tie into some of the things that Rosanna said. So I've had more friends in Puerto Rico now than I've ever had. I think I have more friends in Puerto Rico than any other place. And that's a result of Maria. I mean, I didn't know this beautiful soul before then, you know, people that, but I have, I mean, and then renewed pride in the Puerto Rican people. I mean, the spirit, you know, seeing people with nothing, giving. I mean, literally, I was blown away by people and the resiliency and the strength and character of helping your neighbor and, you know, dealing with it and pride. So it's been a life-changing experience for me. I mean, I thank goodness that I was able to do the work that we're doing, to see it through, to help this wonderful island. So it's been interesting. The work still is, and we're still doing the work. I mean, there's a lot of work to do. And I realize that, you know, we can't fix everything, but, you know, we do whatever we can. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I personally consider both of you guys heroes in many different ways. Rosanna and I think that we met as a result of all of this and my involvement with the Chamber, and I am awestruck at how much you drove forward, you accomplished and helped so many people. And Ron, I also know you from the Chamber, but I don't think this is the first time that I thought of Ron as a hero. So I don't know if a lot of people know this. Well, Ron, he helps many people find jobs, changes people's lives for the better, has inspired me for a while. But did you know that Ron literally saved people from a burning building one time?
Oh, wow.
Let's hear that story.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was driving by and my wife actually noticed the fire in this house, which was right up the road. And, you know, I didn't think much of it, but she said no. And I saw a car in the in the driveway. I'm like, there's got to be somebody in there. And I banged on the door, and the young man came down and didn't realize there was a fire in the house. We got out. Yeah, it's crazy.
I think one of the takeaways from this is no matter who you are or what you're doing, there's always a positive change that you can make no matter what the odds are. You guys are a wonderful example of that. And following in that example, I think Pittsburgh contributed a lot. But what about people who want to contribute now? How can people help now?
I'll leave that one to you.
Well, you know, for me, Brothers Brother has done a tremendous number. Brothers Brother's been around for 60 years, 60. And so they've been doing this work forever. In fact, last year, so if we raised $2 million and gave $2 million in aid to Puerto Rico, that was basically a fraction of what we did all over the world, which is about $200 million. It's ranked one of the best nonprofits of its kind in the country by Forbes magazine. Solid organization, Pittsburgh based. I mean, it's an institution here, homegrown, been doing great work for many, many years, and thank God, because so we're getting ready for now Venezuela as we speak. Yeah, so once we go into Venezuela, Venezuela will be Puerto Rico on steroids, because we have this, you know, we know what worked in Puerto Rico, and so now it's about establishing, hopefully we'll have those same kind of contacts in Venezuela. I don't know if we will, but we're already talking about it, and we're already sending aid to Venezuela. So brothersbrother.org, you can earmark the dollars to go wherever you want in the world, whether it's Africa. Most of our work over the course of the years has been to Latin America. You know, when I did the math, over 40% of the aid annually, so Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua. The organization was founded by Luke Hingston's dad, Dr. Robert Hingston, and he eradicated communicable diseases from all over the world, including Latin America and Africa. This is years ago, so it's a tremendous organization, and we're doing it. I mean, I go to Puerto Rico, we go to the hospitals. In fact, the first CDT in Puerto Rico, we have community diagnostic and treatment centers. Think about being in the mountain, Jayuya. So Jayuya, at the base of Jayuya, it's 20 miles from Ponce, the hospital's in Ponce, but it's going to take you an hour and a half to get up the mountain. So they have a CDT, and the first CDT in Puerto Rico that's got solar powered is in Jayuya. We put it there. It's amazing.
I do remember you talking about that and an emergency room. Can you tell us about the solar panels in the emergency?
Yeah, that's the CDTs, and we visited a number of them. So in Jayuya was cut off. I mean, think about it. The first time I went up to Jayuya, it's paradise, but you get 10 miles an hour up this mountain. So after the hurricane, it was completely cut off. And so we committed to working with the hospital there, the ER, and they have a solar. They don't worry about solar. They don't worry about power anymore. In fact, I was there in January. They had a power outage a couple weeks before, and they didn't know it. They didn't know it at the ER. But here's the thing. So we get to the ER. The ER's everything associated with the ER is solar powered. I go to the birthing room, and the birthing room is not operating because they don't have an air conditioner. So we put an air conditioner in there, and now and so the birthing table is an exam table. It's not even a birthing table. I didn't know that. So now we have a real birthing table, and we sent 2 incubators, portable incubators.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. But that's the small thing. Municipal Hospital San Juan. The Municipal Hospital San Juan, 400-bed hospital. And I never knew what an autoclave was. Do you ever heard of an autoclave? An autoclave is a sterilization unit for surgical instruments. It's vital to what a hospital does, right? So we put 2 of them in December at the municipal hospital, and I only knew that because I saw the invoices, and then a pretty big ticket item, $46,000 each. So I didn't know what they were. During our visit in January, I couldn't go to the hospital, but Luke Hingston and Phil Jones, the chairman and the president of Brothers Brother, took the tour, and they were greeted very warmly by the administrators and doctors there. These autoclaves is transformative for the hospital, because before that they were getting their equipment sterilized at Centro Médico. So think about that. The existing equipment that they had there was from the 70s, and these are items that have a 20-year lifespan. So they had no autoclaves. They were getting these things sterilized in another arena. And you think that's something. That's in the municipal hospital in San Juan. We go to Loíza. Loíza is just outside of San Juan. Loíza was an island upon an island because it was cut off on all sides by water. It's on the ocean and then both sides. It's amazing. I mean, they don't, today, they're struggling with like gauze. So we're doing that work. So, yeah, needless to say, the work continues, and they need a lot of help. And but we've done it. Pittsburgh has done it, Brother's Brother, and you know, we're continuing this effort. So it's amazing to see these different. So whether it's a hospital in Jayuya in a mountain, or a hospital in the city, San Juan.
Everywhere needs help.
It's incredible, but we're doing it.
And another way people can keep on helping is to be aware of the policy that affects Puerto Rico. So U.S. policy has a lot of effects on our economy, on our quality of life, on what we're able to do. And we're not able to vote for the people who make that policy, for the policymakers and for the politicians. We have a representative in Congress, a non-voting member. And so it's very hard to help to bring your island back up when for decades it's been constrained by policy you can do nothing about. So if voting members of the United States could be a little, more aware of it and more aware of what the officials they're voting for, how they stand on these issues, I mean, that just has monumental changes for the island.
And educating yourself, really. I think a lot of the things that we talked about today, people knew, oh, well, it was devastated, but we sent aid, et cetera. But to know what's going on, that there is still a need, that people aren't just, everything's just great, normal, back to normal. I mean, the spirit is there, but to know the things that still need to happen and that aid still needs to be there, I think is really important. I know that before you had told me that you weren't really connected with the Hispanic community. You didn't know that, you were like, I didn't know that there were really other Puerto Ricans here. Tell me about that.
I could count the number of Puerto Ricans I knew in Pittsburgh on one hand, okay? And I had lived here, let's see, that was 2013 to 2017. And one of them I knew before I came, so that doesn't even count. And then
we're here though, right?
Yeah. So I met Maldonado, the physician who came with us and helped with patients and transported medicine. And then Wilfredo through Highmark, and then they looped me into Ron. And then after that, it was just insane.
We're here.
And now we've roped you into the Chamber of Commerce. So we actually gave Rosanna an award. It was
a humanitarian award.
Yes, outstanding humanitarian award, just amazing. And so we gave her a membership because we want people like Rosanna to be part of the chamber. I think a lot of people in Pittsburgh don't know about the Hispanic population here. I don't know if you guys have heard the numbers, but from 2010 to 2014, we grew 70%. And from 2014 to 18, according to the Duquesne Small Business Development Center, Hispanics grew 100% in the greater Pittsburgh area. And I mean, as long as they're wonderful people like us in here, which I think that they are, there's a lot of good things going on, and we're happy that you guys are both part of the community. One thing that I really want to know is, what has this changed for you in your future? Rosanna, if you'd like to start.
So before all of this, like I said, my background is in luxury retail. My grandparents are entrepreneurs, and they owned a family jewelry business. I grew up working in that at the age of 12. When I moved to Pittsburgh, I worked at Orr's Jewelers in Squirrel Hill for 2 years. And then I was kind of playing with the idea of consulting after school. And after what we were able to do for Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, just after experiencing that the entities you think will be there aren't always going to be there, that there are gaps in the system, and that you are able to do something about it, I could never go back. I never once thought about not living my life being able to help others. It just gave a whole new meaning that I didn't know existed. It was like as if you could see a new color for the first time, and you just want to have it everywhere. So I started my master's in public policy at Hines College, and it has been absolutely fantastic. I'm surrounded by people who feel the same way I do and just truly want to apply themselves to make their community a better place. So yeah, I hadn't done an hour of community service before Hurricane Maria. Like, this is not my background, and it's
you did
just
quick makeup for sure.
Yeah, it's transformed my life.
Well, and you've transformed the lives of so many others, so rightfully so. Congratulations on your new path. Ron, what about you? How has this changed things for you?
I don't know if it's, I guess I've been doing community service work for years, and I don't know if it's changed me. I just think that it's just another path to, fortunately I've been given when you're given a platform, you gotta take advantage of it. So it's just a new path for me, Puerto Rico, and doing the work there. And I've been to Puerto Rico more in the past year than I've ever been, and I'll continue to do the work in Puerto Rico, and then we'll see other places. I'm now a board of trustee, a member of Brothers Brother. So we'll see what that means. I mean, Venezuela is the next target, right? So we'll see how it plays out. But it's just about giving back. I've been blessed, so it's about giving back.
Well, before we wrap up, do you guys have any last thoughts, or maybe a story that you haven't gotten to share that you would like people to hear?
Yeah. So just two quick phrases that we have in Puerto Rico, which I always love telling people. One of them is metele mano, which means like get your hands involved, like get in there. And so whenever things are really hard, or like, I remember I was in high school and I'd be studying, and my dad would come into my room and he'd ask how I was going, and then he'd be like, metele mano, like get into those books. Yeah. And I think that's just how Puerto Ricans are, like the going gets tough and the tough get going. Mm-hmm. And that's really what we saw after Hurricane Maria, people who had nothing, just going out there and trying to clear the debris from in front of their homes and helping their neighbors. Mm-hmm. And then another one, which is it's truly beautiful and originated with Hurricane Maria, is Gracias Maria. And it thanks the hurricane for everything that it brought, despite what it took. And I was having been born and raised there, I was still flabbergasted that these people some of who lost like their livelihoods and their homes and their family members were thanking the storm that took it away, because they were able to find some good and some positivity in that. And I mean, I am still absolutely amazed by that expression. They say, I didn't know my neighbor was such an amazing person before the storm, and now we're closer than ever. They have a newfound appreciation for the things that they have and for their family members. It's very touching.
That's amazing. And there's always something positive that you can take out of everything, and that's the way to look at it. Yeah. Ron, what about you?
I think the same. I mean, as I mentioned, I have dear friends now in Puerto Rico who I love. These are people that I've, I realize that I don't know them for that long. These are people that I consider very good friends, and then I realize that we don't, we don't know each other. We don't have the history, so they don't really know my sense of humor, and that gets me in trouble sometimes, really. So, and it's interesting because it happens, because then you realize, wow, he doesn't know me, or she really doesn't know me.
And you feel so close because of what you went through.
So there's no history. If we spent a lot of time together, they would know that I'm joking. Mm-hmm. But you get in trouble that way. But still, it's great to be able to make a difference. Yeah, and to bypass some of the bureaucracy, and I think we can get it done. Metele mano, that's it. Let's forget it. And I love it, because that's the way I am. I'm not having meetings over this. If you want something done, I need your response by Saturday, because if not, we'll talk when I get back.
Actions.
It's action, and there's a lot of people. I mean, the people of Puerto Rico have been very resilient. And then, some great people out there doing some great things. And that's zero. Our work with Raul Rodriguez, there's, you know, it's basically a great partnership, and it's all about helping people.
And one more story, if you want to tell it. I don't think a lot of people realize the parallel between what our team did and how Roberto Clemente ultimately lost his
So
life.
there's, and Fred, I wish Fred was here. Fred Ramos would tell it better than anyone. So he's very superstitious, as we Puerto Ricans are, right? So you have the great one, Roberto Clemente, who's my hero.
Appropriate.
So interestingly enough, so the hurricane hits on the 20th, and I call Brothers out of the blue. Okay, I was just guided to Brothers Brother on the 21st. And it turns out that Dr. Robert Hinkson, the founder of Brothers Brother Foundation, was in Managua, Nicaragua, the day that Roberto Clemente's plane went down in 1972, on New Year's Eve, providing aid to the people, the same people who Roberto Clemente was on his way to help when his plane went down. Robert Hinkson was there. Just all of these connections with Rosanna, and then Rosanna's from Carolina, right? Yasdet Maldonado's from Carolina, so is Roberto Clemente. Raul Rodriguez, a huge Clemente fan. Raul Rodriguez and those folks. Joey Cora, after the hurricane, has a helmet on at the stadium here with a 21 on there. So we were following the footsteps of the great one, Roberto Clemente.
And to be on a plane more or less the size of the one he was on, doing the same thing he was doing.
And I thought about that on our way down there. We're going from Fort Lauderdale on this plane to Puerto Rico. I'm thinking, And I have my 21 hat. I had my 21 hat on. So, you know, it's, and so you have these two Roberts, Robert Hinkson, Roberto Clemente. You know, and I say they're in heaven, you know, proud of the work. That's what they lived and they gave their lives for. So, interestingly,
I think that Pittsburgh always has felt that way about Roberto Clemente. I mean, we have the bridge at the stadium, there's tons of pictures and things, and I feel like this was just one more way for us to tie in. And also his son being one of the members of the board of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Yeah. I mean, so many great coincidences.
Yeah. So. And in fact, I'll tell you that Roberto Clemente Jr., Luis Clemente, Roberto, when we reached out to him to come and help support our effort, he came. And he represents another global nonprofit. And he didn't come representing that nonprofit, which was great. You know, so I love him for that. He was here. Luis Clemente, I mean, we were on the phone. I mean, he was the lifeline to Puerto Rico. I knew that if I got to Puerto Rico on one of these flights, that I knew that I had somebody that I can count on to help me get to my mom. So, you know, in honor of the great one, we did the work. You know, so we should all be proud. Pittsburgh should be very proud, because I know that, you know, Roberto Clemente, he said, those are my people. My Pittsburgh people. My Pittsburgh peeps came through.
His spirit is alive and well. Let's, one more time before we round up, I want to say the Pirates, that was 400,000 pounds of aid. Rosanna, you talked about your campaign, what was it, a GoFundMe? Tell us how much you raised.
So we raised just over $250,000. We brought down 76,500 pounds of aid, and we evacuated 296 people, and I want to say about 4 or 5 dogs.
At least my brownie. So, and then the Pirates, 450,000 pounds collected from the people of Pittsburgh, plus cash, I think somewhere around 50,000. And then Brothers Brother, to date, 1.2 million pounds. And going.